It's The Log. I'm Charles Purcell. Happy Monday, everybody. I'm going to see if we can spend some time on good news today. Good news. And not the kind of good news. We talked about this, a couple weeks ago. The sort of happy news story they put at the end of the newscast, that one. Human interest. Or the John Krasinskis of the world with their little happy news shows. Or the Ellens of the world giving away thousands of dollars to their studio audiences and to hard luck guests who became YouTube stars. No, not like that. I mean real good news, like news that advances things in the world. Not good news that covers up and props up social injustices. No, not that kind of good news. Oh, look, Ellen helped a homeless guy. I guess homelessness is no longer a problem because Ellen helped that one guy and we all feel good about it. No. When I give you good news on this show, it's going to be genuinely good news about progress in the world. But before I give you the good news, we got to start with a couple of things. Oh, man. Well, we've got a new name, couple of new names, several new names to add to the list. Rayshard Brooks, you've seen the video by now, shot down in Atlanta. And just another perfect example of why defund the police makes sense. If we had reasonable public safety agencies in place, and they got a call saying, there's somebody sleeping in their car in the drive-in lane at Wendy's. They wouldn't send cops with guns. No, they'd send a couple of people trained, and they'd help this guy out. And if he blew over the limit on the breath test, there are things you could do besides handcuffing him and scaring the hell out of him. Now, I don't know why he resisted. I don't know why he ran. I'm sure we'll learn the reasons. I don't know why. Maybe he was just scared. Maybe he had a warrant out for something else. I don't know. It could be anything. But none of that really matters. That's all painfully beside the point. And racists and apologists for the system will look for those reasons and try to justify. No. The fact is, this is another guy dead. Caught on camera. So he's one of 3 people killed by police on that particular day. Because we know 3 people die at the hands of the police every single day. And this one caught on video. Anyway, so Rayshard Brooks, add that name to the list. Just each incident further proving the need for radical reform. And I'll use the words, defund the police, abolish the police. I'll use those words. Anybody who pretends they don't understand what that means, it's one of 2 things. Either they're lying, they do understand it, it just doesn't fit their agenda. Or they honestly don't understand it, which means they're being willfully ignorant at this point. So there's that. When I first saw this video, I thought, okay, let me give this cop the benefit of the doubt for a second. Maybe he thinks that Brooks is aiming a gun back at him. Because as they're running, Brooks is out front. This cop is giving chase. Brooks reaches back as he's running and aims the taser at the cop. They're about, good 15 feet away from each other maybe. So I'm thinking, all right, is it possible the cop thinks he has a gun? Because in the struggle immediately prior to this shooting, Brooks takes the taser from the other cop. So maybe he thinks he has a gun. Maybe he took his partner's gun. But no. Find out that is not at all the case. The cop is quoted in one of these articles saying, I saw him aim the taser at me. He knew it was a taser. And when Brooks turned back again to run, 3 shots in the back. Yeah, it's just we got another murder charge here. It's murder. It's murder. That's all it is. Now, I'm not trained as a police officer. You probably aren't either. But if it's one guy unarmed, and they knew he was unarmed because they talked to him for several minutes before the incident happened. So it's one guy unarmed running away. You've already got all of his information. You got his name, his address. You're probably holding his driver's license in your hand. You've got his car. You know what? Just how hard is it going to be to catch this guy? Let him go. Let him run. Let him get a little nighttime jog in. He's obviously not dangerous. He's not going to go kill somebody. So you and I aren't trained, but it's just so incredibly obvious. He was a couple of 100ths of a percentage point over the legal limit for alcohol in his system, according to the breathalyzer they gave him. Has given absolutely zero indication that he's dangerous at all in any way. So just let him run. Who cares? Just call it in. All right, okay, we got this guy we got to talk to. He resisted arrest, and he was a couple 100ths of a percentage point over the limit. So send somebody to go get him. We'll find him. How tough is it going to be? Oh, Lord. They're just proving our point every single day. Every single day they're proving our point. It's like they're trying. Like when George Costanza was trying to get fired from the Yankees. I fear no repercussions. Lord. And in really horrible, disturbing stories over the weekend, 2 black men have been found just outside Los Angeles, hung from a tree. I can't believe I'm saying this out loud. One of them was deemed a suicide. I don't know what the ruling is on the other one. Yeah, I don't believe that for a second. Because something else that we've learned, probably suspected before, maybe some people just knew it outright, the cops just routinely lie. It's just part of the process is to lie, blatantly lie on police reports and press releases. So after about a 2-minute investigation, they decide that this first guy they find in Palmdale, I've been to Palmdale, High Chaparral out there, cowboy country, outside Los Angeles. And then another one right on the heels of that, like the next day. Yeah, after 2 minutes of an investigation, they tell us, apparent suicide. Come on. Because another part of this big picture, there's going to be blowback. Just here, Menomonee Falls is a burb a little bit west and north of where I am. Here in River West, the greatest neighborhood in the world, in Milwaukee. Yeah, over the weekend they were going to have a defend the police rally. A kind of a counter rally to everything that's going on. Going to have it in Brookfield. Brookfield is directly west of here. Inner burb. Famously the site of I Need a Haircut protests. They were planning the rally for Brookfield, but it didn't get a lot of interest or got some pushback. So they changed it to a site in Menomonee Falls, which a lot of people will tell you is a little, it's somewhat known for its political slant. I don't know if it happened or not. I think it probably didn't. I don't know if there was enough interest. I'll have to look into that. I don't know if it happened. But the point being, yeah, there's going to be pushback. Now, the good news, and I promised you good news today, Black Lives Matter is winning. The protesters are winning. They have public support by large numbers. So that's great. That's good. But there's going to be pushback on the streets. So-called defend the police groups are growing around the country. And there's going to be this horrific, violent pushback. A couple of lynchings over the weekend. I mean, old-fashioned, hung from a tree lynchings. And these words stick in my mouth. They do not roll off my tongue easily. But there you go. Promised you good news today, but before we get to the good news, over the weekend, the Orange Menace prohibited graduates of West Point from wearing their masks. He insisted on giving the commencement address. As commander-in-chief, he just invited himself. Nobody invited him. He made the decision. He wanted the optics for his campaign ads. So even though all the cadets had been sent home, all the graduating cadets had been sent home in March due to the coronavirus, he made them all come back, made them all spend 14 days in quarantine, prohibited them from wearing their masks, and then gave a big, dumb, boring little teleprompter speech that nobody needed to hear. All just to make a campaign ad for himself. So, yeah, what did you do over the weekend? That's what he did. And he went and played some golf. Speaking of the weekend, could you not anymore take pictures of a nice big bottle of wine and a wine glass, sitting on a table with your beautiful palatial backyard or pool as the background here? Here's to the weekend, is the caption. I am so grossed out by people, particularly in this time, who post their privilege. Look at me. Look at my lifestyle. Look at my comfort. Isn't it wonderful? Well, I don't understand I don't understand what kind of person shares that. How completely out of touch and clueless and tone deaf you have to be. There are fewer of these posts these days. I see fewer of them. But I still see them. And it's, didn't you get the memo? Are you unaware of what's going on? People are being murdered, and thousands, millions are in the street shouting for justice. I'm not saying you shouldn't take some time. Everyone should, including the protesters. Take some time. Maybe open up a bottle of wine if you have one. Yeah, relax a little bit. Heal a little bit. Rest a little bit. Everybody should do that, protesters included. But you're actually going to get on social media and brag about your leisurely weekend in this beautiful sun-dappled picture you share from your rich, privileged compound? I don't understand people. I don't understand people at all. Well, hey, I promised you some good news, didn't I? I did. I promised you some good news. But before we get to the good news, it's worth mentioning that we passed a milestone over the weekend. On Saturday, we hit the mark of 116,840 deaths from the coronavirus. Significant because as it climbs the list of U.S. deaths from wars, epidemics, attacks, and disasters, that surpasses World War I. World War I, 116,516 deaths. Now, I didn't know this until last week. I looked it up. More than half, over 63,000 of those deaths, were lost to disease, largely due to the Spanish flu epidemic of 1918. So of all the deaths in World War I, more than half came from disease. Approximately 53,000 combat deaths. So the coronavirus blew past that number. Let's see, back in mid-late April, we hit the 54,000 mark on, I think, the 25th of April. So we're way past that. If you're curious, the list is Pearl Harbor, 2,400, 9/11, approximately 3,000, 1906 San Francisco earthquake, 3,000, 1900 Galveston hurricane, 8,000. I didn't know about that. Korean War, 36,600. Vietnam War, 58,200. World War I, 116,500. Again, over half from the Spanish flu. And today, as of today, 117,858 COVID-19 and climbing. Now, the next on the list, hopefully we will not catch them. World War II, 405,500. U.S. Civil War, estimated at 620,000, although, again, about half from combat, the other half from dysentery and diarrhea. And then topping the list, Spanish flu, 1918, 675,000. So I don't know how much higher we're going to climb. I hope we don't catch these others ahead of us on the list. But we're not going to have a vaccine for a while. And until then, it's going to take social distancing, masks, and staying home when we can. And again, we're relying on the goodwill of our fellow citizens. And I don't know how optimistic I can be when it comes to that. Well, I promised you some good news, didn't I? Let's run through some headlines, all related to our current situation. Protests in the streets continue, reform called for, and I got to tell you, I've been really surprised at the rapid pace of some of this stuff. Minneapolis approves plan to create community alternative to police department. That happened immediately in the aftermath of the Floyd murder, the George Floyd murder, where the Minneapolis City Council announced they'd be taking this action. They took a vote on Friday. In a unanimous vote, the City Council of Minneapolis, Minnesota passed a plan to ultimately move police department responsibilities to a yet undefined community alternative. So, yes, it's going to take a while, maybe up to a year, to figure out what this is going to look like. But it's been voted on. It's happening. The plan calls for a commission of most major city departments to lay out the plan over the course of the next year. The Minneapolis City Council shared a copy of its resolution titled, Declaring the Intent to Create a Transformative New Model for Cultivating Safety in Our City. So that's just wonderful. That is fantastic. That's what needs to happen in every city, in every county, in every state. And then the feds, who don't have really that much to do with policing, can definitely support it at the federal level as well. More good news. Amy McGrath takes narrow lead over Mitch McConnell in Kentucky Senate race. Poll shows. What do you think about that? Democratic senatorial candidate Amy McGrath appears to have a very narrow lead over Senate Majority Leader Moscow Mitch McConnell in Kentucky's race, according to a recent poll. 41-40, according to this poll. So, yeah, she's right there, striking distance. 17% of those surveyed still undecided. So, Moscow Mitch, his opponent, Amy McGrath, within striking distance. What do you think about that? Back to police reform. Unarmed professionals will now respond to non-criminal police calls in San Francisco to reduce police confrontations. As we've said many times, I'll remind you, the vast majority, some estimates up to 90% of 911 calls do not require a cop with a gun, which, as we've seen over the weekend in Atlanta, only increases the chance of violence. San Francisco Mayor London Breed said in the coming months, professionals would respond to non-criminal calls instead of officers. The move is part of a 4-part plan to limit police confrontation. More good news. Cops are getting fired over their racist social media posts. We've seen this for years. Cops are notorious for their racist social media posts. But according to this story, in the wake of George Floyd's killing and a national uprising, police officers are actually facing backlash for their entries into a canon of bad online behavior from law enforcement. Protesters and their supporters aren't the only ones who have gotten vocal on social media. In the last 2 weeks, across the United States, law enforcement officers have taken to the internet to post denigrating, often racist content about George Floyd and the protests catalyzed by his death. And in a reflection of the recent way overdue push for an increase in accountability, they're actually getting fired for it. And then the article goes on to give several examples. June 1st, Fulton, New York. June 3rd in Denver. June 9th, Alabama. Other examples, several. Yeah, finally some good news. Now, is this the end? Obviously not. But this is good news. There's short-term, medium-term, and long-term solutions. And here in the short term, things are happening. Also in the good news file, that vile, disgusting, openly racist, openly provocative decision from the Orange Menace and his little Nazi buddy, Stephen Miller, to have their MAGA rally in Tulsa on Juneteenth. Well, they didn't get away with it. Still going to be in Tulsa, but they're moving it off of June 19th, postponing it by a day. So even the Orange Menace and his Nazi buddy had to bow to pressure brought by the millions just disgusted by this little ploy. Yeah, we did it to make people mad. That's the whole point. We want to troll the libs. We want them to get angry. But even this was too much, and they had to back off. So happy to say the good guys are winning for a change, finally. Good news today, good news. From last week, I should not have been there. Joint Chiefs Chairman General Mark Milley broke his silence and public address said, nope, I shouldn't have been at that photo op at the church over there at Lafayette Square. Just one of many current and former military leaders breaking from their own commander-in-chief. Because we got good news today. Good news, good news. Breonna's Law. Council unanimously votes to ban Louisville police from using no-knock warrants. Again, as with any problem, there are short-term solutions, long-term, medium-term. There's big picture, there's small picture. These are things that can happen right now, today. And they're happening. Now, is it going to bring Breonna back? No. Is this story as horrible as it ever was? Yes. But the Louisville Metro Council has unanimously voted 26-0 to pass Breonna's Law. The ordinance completely bans Louisiana Metro Police Department from using no-knock warrants in Jefferson County. No LMPD police officer, no Louisville Metro Department of Corrections officer, or any other Metro law enforcement or public safety official shall seek, execute, or participate in the execution of a no-knock warrant at any location within the boundaries of Jefferson County. There you go. Of course, you know the no-knock warrant allowed the cops to just bang your door in the middle of the night, which they did quite reasonably. Breonna's boyfriend thought they were being attacked because the cops didn't announce themselves. They just busted down the door. And so in an effort to protect himself, the boyfriend shoots. Cops in a hail of bullets shoot Breonna in her bed. Yeah, no-knock warrants have no place in a civilized society at all. Again, every city, every county, every state needs to do the same. Congress can't come in and micromanage law enforcement, but they can certainly create national standards. They could certainly create a nationwide law prohibiting no-knock warrants, certainly within their duties, responsibilities, certainly within their right, within their purview, within their power. Good news today. Good news. On the cultural front as well, U.S. Soccer repeals rule that banned kneeling during the anthem. We heard last week that the NFL has pretty much conceded that they were wrong about the whole kneeling thing. So on a cultural level as well. Talked last week about the NASCAR driver who asked NASCAR, you know what, could we eliminate the Confederate flag? It doesn't belong. NASCAR said, you know what, you're right. And in just one of dozens of stories like this, protesters toppled Jefferson Davis statue in Richmond, Virginia. Yeah, dozens of these stories. Confederate governors, generals, Christopher Columbus statue beheaded over the weekend. They're being pulled down by protesters. Mayors and governors are having them removed. We've had this fight for how long? For years and years we've had this fight. And boom, 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 here we go. Good news, you guys. Getting back to the separation now between the military and the Orange Menace. Most, if not all, military leaders who've spoken out on this are perfectly happy and think it's appropriate to take the names of Confederate generals off of military bases. Fort Bragg, Fort Hood. The Orange Menace says, no, it's not going to happen. It's going to happen. Speaking of good news, just generally on all of these issues, police reform, the cultural front of athletes kneeling or monuments coming down. Agent Orange is just face planting on all of this. You got to take some satisfaction in watching him fail so miserably on this stuff. The top House Republican, Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy, has endorsed key elements of Democrats' police reform package and suggested there could be room for a bipartisan compromise, even as the House GOP is pressing ahead with its own bill. Yeah, if you want to get wonky about this and look at the politics and the various bills being proposed and unveiled, yeah, you could be cynical. Oh, politics. And is it enough? No, it's not enough. Is it a step forward? Damn right it is. Is it good news? Yes, absolutely it is good news. So there's your good news. There's your good news for today. And none of this happens without the people on the streets. You guys are the heroes. You guys are absolute heroes. I love you. You've been listening to The Log, and I'm Charles Purcell. Talk to you tomorrow.